earlier parliamentary inquiry, Madam Chair, I have already related the value of tradition. Parliamentary procedures, Madam Chair, grow from or are enriched by traditions, experiences, and precedents collectively gathered by the House of Representatives over years, and the institution keeps them well. That is why, from my entry in 2004 or the 13th Congress until today, I have observed the observance of that well-kept tradition. The two highest positions in government, namely the office of the President and the office of the Vice President, were duly accorded with respect and deference. I have observed that. That's why I have relayed to you earlier, in 2022, the Honorable Libanan, invoking courtesy, took him only 13 minutes to dispose the office of the Vice President. And that was quickly moved, quickly seconded by no less than our majority leader. That was in 2022. I'm not going by record, Madam Chair. 2023, I said, no less than the presidential son, our own senior deputy majority leader, stood up and said that in line with the time-honored tradition of according courtesy to the office of the Vice President, I move to terminate the budget briefing of the OBP. And I can recall the Honorable Castro strongly objected.
No, Manuel.
No, that's in 2023. This is by the record. And she objected, but her objections were rejected by the committee because the committee already terminated the proceedings. And she kept on requesting, Madam Chair, that she makes at least her manifestation. And she was unable to do that because the proceedings were terminated. So that, what I am saying, from 2004, when I entered these halls, these hallowed halls, hanggang pundo sa sinasabi kong 2023, we have kept the tradition. Ngayon po, kung ano-ano ng mga tanong ang ginawa, in 2023, 22 minutes. 2022, 13 minutes. Ito po, pinagawayan na po yung budget earlier at ngayon we're about to quarrel again on the budget. Ang tanong ko nga po ngayon, dahil nga po sa nangyayari ngayon sa budget ng Office of the Vice President, and despite her manifestation that she will no longer defend her budget because she forgoed, sabi niya, I will forgo my opportunity to defend the budget of the OBP for 2025 by way of question and answer, and I will leave to the House of Representatives to decide such proposal as presented. We cannot even accept such kind of answer, Madam Chair. What do we need her to articulate for? So ang pinag-uusapan po natin, wala na po ba yung respeto sa tradisyon na yun? Kagaya po ng binabanggit ko, every time mag-i-interpellate po dito, Madam Chair, because of that tradition, it's always the member of the minority who will start the interpellation because we have kept that tradition. Ang dami po. Ang dami ko pang sasabihin sa inyo, haba lang tayo. So the question is, when we did that to the Vice President earlier, now we're doing it now, are we now setting aside this tradition? That's number one question. Number two, is this committee authorized to set aside the tradition?
Your Honor, short answer is no to both questions.
Okay. If that is the answer, Madam Chair, and we are all bound to respect one tradition so sacred in our hearts, because we are called honorables in this house. We cannot be honorables if we cannot honor our own tradition. We are defined by what we believe as a tradition in this house. So if we are now all amenable that we have kept that tradition, no longer questions are being asked, then I will respectfully move, Madam Chair, to move to terminate the budget of the OBP for 2025.
I object, Madam
Thank
Chair.
you.
I object.
Madam Chair, I
There's a
object.
motion to terminate the budget briefing of the OVP, but there is an objection, so we divide the House. The chair has decided to divide the House. So those
Madam Chair,
in favor
as
of the motion,
as a rule, we usually deliberate
Those-
before we vote.
those in favor
We deliver-
of the motion, please raise your hand. Those in favor of the motion to terminate the budget briefing of the OVP, please raise your hand.
All those against.
Those who are not in favor of terminating, raise your hand.
For non-tradition. Okay. 17. Three in favor, 45 against.
3 in favor, 45 against.
Motion is
The motion
lost.
is
Lost.
lost.
Madam Chair, I thought we have kept the tradition. The tradition is no longer ask any question. That was the tradition. So why are you voting against the motion?
The majority of the
It-
will
it's-
is always respect.
It's
The will of the
inconsistent
majority
with
is
the
always
tradition that
respected.
we have already agreed to observe.
So we will
Yes, Madam
proceed
Chair.
to the next.
You mentioned earlier that we will keep up the tradition. You said no. Earlier,
For
now
orderly
we voted
proceedings, I
against.
remind the members to please wait to be recognized before speaking. So, the chair now recognizes the
Madam
budget
Chair.
sponsor, the Honorable Zia Adyong, to give a recap of what transpired in the last hearing.
Madam Chair,
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, before
Madam Chair.
we proceed with Vice Chair Adjong, can I
Yes,
explain my vote, Madam Chair?
Paduano?
Can I explain my vote, why I voted against the motion of the Honorable Marcoleta? Just a short lang.
You have 1 minute.
Thank you po. Madam Chair, tama po, during the previous hearing, wala pong nag-move to terminate the budget. That's number 1 po, of the OBP. Number 2 po, the demand or the answers being given by the Vice President during the time, personally, it does not satisfy this representation. Thirdly, Madam Chair, the courtesy being given to the Office of the Vice President is afforded if she is present in the day's hearing. How can you give that courtesy when Faki is absent in the day's hearing, Madam Chair? I might change my vote for that, but
Was the President of the
are
Philippines
you
present?
recognized?
Please.
Congressman,
Please
I am
wait
about
to
to
be
be recognized,
recognized.
Madam Chair.
Please wait to be recognized. Please proceed, Kong Paduano. You
You're
have
not yet
30 seconds.
recognized, Marcoleta. Madam Chair, maybe I will change my vote if the for the motion Marcoleta if the Vice President is present in today's hearing. But he's absent. How can I personally vote for that? Because he's not present in today's hearing, Madam Chair, and that courtesy should be given to those head of office that should be present during the budget deliberation, Madam Chairman. Thank you.
So, Kong Zia, you're now recognized. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Majority Leader, Representative Manix Dalipe, Committee Chair Saldico, members, honorable members of this committee, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Good morning po sa ating lahat and welcome to the continuation of the budget briefing of the proposed 2025 budget for the Office of the Vice President. Madam Chair, in the previous hearing for fiscal year 2025, the Office of the Vice President proposed a budget of 2,037,305. As of the most recent report, the OVP has an obligation rate of 39.9% for 2024. During the last budget briefing, several topics were propounded that the committee sought to be clarified upon. First, members of the committee asked the Office of the Vice President regarding the notice of disallowance issued by COA for the confidential funds released in 2022 indicated that 73 million pesos or 58.6% of total was not utilized in compliance with Joint Memorandum Circular 2015-01 of COA, DBM, DILG, GCG, and DND. The Commission on Audit has ordered the disallowed amount to be returned. Second, several members of the committee examined the grounds for the disallowance. The COA report stated that this was due to non-compliance with guidelines and the non-submission of supporting evidence or documents. Third, it was noted by members of the committee that the 125 million pesos confidential fund for the fiscal year 2022 was utilized from December 1 to December 31 of the same year, in 2022. A common comment by members, Madam Chair, was that this short period of time within which a huge amount of fund is spent raised further clarificatory questions on the validity of the spending. Fourth, members of the committee raised that there were supposed duplications between the Office of the Vice President's medical and burial assistance programs and those provided by the DOH and the SWD. Clarifications were sought on how these overlaps would be addressed to ensure the proper use of resources. Fifth, there were inquiries about the accessibility of various OVP programs, such as the Educational Assistance Program, the Kalusugan Food Truck, and the Magnegosyo Taday initiative for MSMEs. The committee sought further information on how these programs align with the OVP's mandate. And lastly, Madam Chair, the committee requested an explanation of how the OVP's programs reflect its constitutional mandate and whether the proposed 2025 budget will support continued progress in these areas. That would be all, Madam Chair, and I would yield back the floor to the Senior Vice Chair, Representative Stella Kimbo. Maraming salamat po at magandang umaga po sa ating lahat.
So we shall begin interpellation. Siyempre nakakalungkot na wala tayong representatives mula sa OVP, pero muli meron tayong representatives mula sa DBM at COA. And again, I would like to
Madam Chair.
Remind our members that you each have 5 minutes for your interpellation, and to remind our resource persons that those 5 minutes will not include your responses. And so the first
Madam
to
Chair.
interpellate from the minority, we have the Honorable Ramon Rodrigo Gutierrez. You have 5 minutes. The floor is yours, Kong Rog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning po to our resource persons from the COA and the DBM. Madam Chair, this representation, first and foremost, laments the fact that the Office of the Vice President has failed to appear today. We lament the fact that, as I understand, the committee actually extended courtesy. In the letter, it was indicated that the Vice President may or may not attend. However, it is required that a representative be here. Unfortunately, not even a representative is present here, kahit USEC man lang, ASEC, not even a director, for us to be answer questions. As a personal courtesy to the Office of the Vice President and understanding her responses from the last hearing, this representation has opted to question mostly the budget of 2023 regarding the regular budget. But even then, unfortunately, it would seem that the OVP is not here for us to question. So but in line with their duty in the House for the deliberation of the budget, I will carry on with my questions. Siguro po dito na lang si COA because coincidentally my questions are precisely on the COA report. So with that, Madam Chair, we'll be now proceeding with my questioning to the COA.
Point of order, Madam Chair.
What is your point of order, and please explain the rule that is violated?
The rule violated, Madam Chair, is our tradition. You just upheld that the tradition will be respected. And so, if questions will still be asked, then the tradition that we have kept so well, that you have said that we're not about to discard right now, will be disrespected again. I thought we understood each other.
There was already a ruling.
Kong Marcoleta, we had already voted earlier on that issue.
That's
on
another
tradition,
matter,
so
Madam Chair.
Your point is not well taken. Please proceed, Kong Rog.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, Madam Chair, I'd like to direct my question to the COA. Madam Chair, I understand part of the budget of the OVP was utilized for the construction of satellite offices. Would that be confirmed by the COA?
The Office of the Vice President has several satellite offices. 3 established in 2022 and 7 were established in 2023. So it's wait. I stand corrected. 3 force based on the report, or 7 was established in 2022 and 3 was established in 2023. So around 10 satellite offices were established by the Office of the Vice President.
Madam Chair, my next question was supposedly about whether there were additional satellite offices or extension offices established in 2024. But I believe the COA will not be able to answer this, so I will forgo this question. I also have a question as to whether there will be additional SOs and EOs in 2025 as to their proposed budget. But I understand also the COA will not be in a position to answer this, so I will forgo this. Madam Chair, based on the OVP, annual audit report for 2023, there is an item there regarding the rent and lease expenses. Would you be able to clarify with us what were your findings on rent and lease expenses?
Based on our observations, there are no major deficiency or significant deficiencies on the rent expenses of the OBP.
Sorry, Madam Chair, may I clarify, magkano po yung lease expenses that you have found in your audit report?
Based on the notes to financial statement prepared by the agency, the amount of rent expenses for the year 2023 is around 53,463,434.11.
And Madam Chair, for fiscal year 2022, how much po yung lease nila?
For the 2022, it is 29,867,228.20.
So, or roughly from around 30 million to 53 million po yung increase, no? Yung rent natin. Okay, thank you. But for these SOs and EOs, actually, Madam Chair, on this juncture, I was supposed to ask the Office of the Vice President if there was any studies conducted as to the locations of the satellite offices and extension offices. But as there's no representative, I will have to forego this question. Madam Chair, may we ask the COA, based on their reports in the previous administrations, were satellite offices and extension offices constructed by previous administrations?
On my knowledge, based on my knowledge, the previous office of the Vice President or the previous administration for Office of the Vice President does not have a satellite offices.
No satellite offices. Thank you, Madam Chair. And Madam Chair, what exactly is the function of, based on your audit and based on your investigation, what is the exact function of a satellite office or extension office?
Based on our audit, the satellite offices has the functions to extend the social services such as the medical and burial assistance of the programs of the Office of the Vice President.
Madam Chair, so it's meant to be an extension of the social services function?
Yes.
But Madam Chair, I understand in your executive summary, you also, as COA, you familiarize yourselves with the office and the function, and the mandate is necessary for you to determine whether or not it is in line with what they are supposed to be doing, correct, Madam Chair? So, Madam Chair, with the OVP, what is the exact mandate of the Office of the Vice President as far as the COA is concerned?
based on the notes to financial statement or our report, the OBP is a national government agency established under Section 3 of the Article 7 of the 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, and later reorganized on July 24, 1987 under Executive Order number 240, and then as the second highest office in the land committed to the service of the nation, OBP performs executive, ceremonial, and advocacy functions, collaborating with stakeholder and organization in both public and private sectors to develop and promote programs that uplift the lives of the Filipino.
Madam Chair, according to the COA, in your opinion, can the OVP continue its programs without satellite offices and extension offices? As you mentioned in the previous administrations, wala naman pong SO, wala namang EO. So, based on your audit findings, would it be absolutely necessary that we have this rent and lease expenses?
I think if the question is kung necessary po ba yung mga pag-open ng extensions offices, I think the question must be addressed to the office of the Vice President, not the auditors. But then on our point of view, based on our audit, that to extend the services, it is considered or it may be okay for the Office of the Vice President to open an extension office or satellite offices to extend their services.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I would agree, and I was actually considering foregoing that question, but I just wanted to get the COA's opinion since they have institutional and historical knowledge of yung previous administrations and the fact that they were able to carry out their functions without satellite offices and extension offices. But with that, Madam Chair, understanding also that tama naman po yung sinabi ng COA that perhaps the SO and the EOs are there to assist in the administration of other functions of the OVP. I understand that there's a finding in your observations and recommendations, number 8, regarding the cash advances. Can you please clarify ano po ito?
Madam Chair, under the number 8 of the observation, this is the under and over budget allocation for each satellite offices. Based on our review on the average monthly disbursement of each satellite office, based on the actual expenses for CY 2023, it disclosed that the cash advances granted to the disbursement officers in the OVP satellite office were not within the 2-month budget requirements as required by the Section 20, Chapter 6, Volume 1 of the GAM 4 and GAS. So there is an under and over 2-month budget requirements.
Madam Chair, my understanding po of this cash advance is to allow for the orderly administration of those functions of the SOs and EOs po, no? And rightly, there are guidelines with the COA that 2 months po yung ideal na meron parang for their operating usage. Madam Chair, can the COA correct us based on their understanding of the nationwide needs of budgeting and auditing? Are all regions equal po ba? Are all the requirements equal throughout the country? Or varying naman po siya based on demographic, based on demand? With other functions, for example, in your auditing of the DSWD, sa history po ninyo, when auditing their social services functions, equal po ba palagi ang budget ng kanilang regional offices?
Madam Chair, on my knowledge, actually, dapat po mayroong assessment on the scope or the number of beneficiaries involved, kasi kung assistance po ito, kailangan nating i-consider yung number of beneficiaries, so hindi po dapat equally.
Correct. So we should be actually considering ano po yung pangangailangan ng ating mga kababayan, ilan po yung ating mga kababayan doon, yung population center, yung how far they are from the office. Yun po ay mga aspects that we consider when setting up regional offices. That would be a fair assumption to make. Correct po, no, Mr. Chair? Madam Chair?
Madam Chair, yes po.
Yes. Madam Chair, do you find it odd that for all of these ex-satellite offices, they share an equal 2.2 million cash advance? Except, of course, for the BARM, which suspiciously only has 200,000 cash advance granted?
For this observation, the Office of the Vice President established or equally granted cash advance for 2,200,000 for each satellite office except for the BARM. So kaya po mayroon kaming observation na over budget utilization kasi for us, I think hindi dapat siya uniform. It must be consider po yung lawak nung scope or yung mga beneficiaries involved po natin para po ma-consider yung tamang amount na i-establish po natin. So as you can see in the report, there is a under over budget requirements. So mayroon pong mga satellite offices na sobra-sobra yung budget. At the same time, mayroon naman pong mga satellite offices na kulang yung budget.
And I would tend-
Madam Chair, parliamentary inquiry, Madam Chair. Madam Chair,
Yeah.
parliamentary inquiry.
The Honorable Abante.
It is also a cherished tradition in Congress that whenever we deliberate the budget of a certain agency, that the head of the agency must be present. At this point in time, there are no staff here. The head of agency present on the office of the Vice President. And we only have a DBM here. A DBM even answered that only, the COA even answered that only the OVP could be able to answer that. Perhaps we could be able to say it. Kanina, sinabi rin po ni Kongresista Marcoleta, is a cherished tradition to approve the budget immediately. But there's a cherished tradition that when we deliberate a budget of any agency, that the head of agency should be present. That is my parliamentary inquiry, Mr. Chair.
So, as we had explained earlier, we received a letter dated 10 September. At doon sa liham na yon, pinaliwanag ng ating Vice Presidente na sinabmit na po niya lahat ng mga documents na sa tingin niya ay kakailanganin ng Kongreso sa ating pagkilatis ng kanyang budget.
Yes, Madam
And
Chair.
so, yun po
But,
ang sitwasyon natin sa ngayon. Pwede natin, pagkatapos ng ating interpellation, pwede natin desisyonan kung anong gagawin. Pero sa ngayon, ipapagpatuloy muna natin ang pagtatanong.
Madam Chair, let me
Honorable
explain.
Abante.
No? But her letter, actually, na her not being present here, is an insult to this institution. When we had the last hearing, I even questioned her if this institution has the right to scrutinize the budget, and she even failed to answer. My goodness, I think that her writing a letter to us telling us that she has completed this, she still must be present, Madam Chair. And because she is not present, she is actually insulting the second institution that should scrutinize the budget of the Vice President. And I do not care even if she is the Vice President, Madam Chair. I will not allow that Congress will be insulted by the head of any agency.
Duly noted.
But Madam Chair, whatever your decision might be, I would concede to it.
Salamat po. Please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and salamat Kong Benny. Akala ko po ako yung subject ng point of inquiry ninyo. Natakot po ako doon, pero salamat po. And I share the frustration and lament that. And actually, as you can see based on my interpellation, although, yes, we're able to get these questions out in the open, wala po tayong actual sagot na nakukuha, unfortunately. And this is by no fault of the COA. We appreciate your attendance here and your answering to the best of your abilities. But it's just that precisely the questions here relating to the budget of 2025, understandably, will not be able to answer. With that, Madam Chair, I have other questions here. And supposedly at this juncture, lahat na po ito ay targeted, directed po doon sa OVP. But just to point it out po, no, going back to what the COA mentioned regarding the percentage of variance, yung over po nga ng Cebu and Bohol was 70%. As compared naman yung under for Panay and Negros Islands, 276% po. So hindi po maayos yung pag-distribute throughout the regions. It seems to be they were done equally. They were equally cut, and I think this would definitely have an effect on the operational effectiveness of yung mga satellite offices and extension offices. But anyway, I leave it to the body to decide on what to do with this, and I will now conclude my interpellation. Thank you very much, COA. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Right. Salamat. Next to interpellate from the majority, we have the Honorable Fidel Nograles.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is addressed to the COA in relation to the question on the lease or rent of satellite offices. I would like to ask, based on your audit report, that you mentioned that in 2022, there was 29 million, and in 2023, there was 53 million spent on lease or rent of satellite offices or extension offices. In your audit report, do you have details on the breakdown of this 53 million spent on year 2023? If yes, can you provide our committee with information on how this 53 million on the lease of satellite offices was spent?
Madam Chair, based on the report, the rent expenses or lease expenses in CY 2023 represents the payment for the lease of office at the Robinson Cybergrid Plaza, Disaster Operations Center, and various satellite office locations. It also includes the lease of storage space for various files and equipment and lease of multi-copier machines. So, for your question, Madam Chair, on the exact amount or the breakdown of the 53